I do think that as long as the programs continue as they're going now, and as long as these refugees actually stay in Germany, they'll be able to be a boon to the economy.
Hello, this is Thanassis Cambanis, and welcome to episode 20 of the TCF World Podcast. I'm joined by Lily Hindy, a doctoral candidate at UCLA and a former policy associate here at the Century Foundation. Lily is in Los Angeles. Hi, Lily.
Hi, Thanassis.
We're here today to talk about a fantastic report that Lily wrote that has a lot of implications for U.S. policy and also for immigration policy worldwide. She took an in-depth look at how Germany is doing several years into its effort to integrate the million Syrian refugees it admitted during that major movement of refugees some years back. Lily, tell us to start with what you actually did to research this report.
So I went to Germany in March of this year and visited 3 cities. I started in Berlin and spent about a week there. And then we went down to Würzburg in Bavaria, which is a small city, and then on to Kaufbeuren, which is an even smaller town. And we started in Berlin because it's the capital. It's taken in many refugees. And then we went on to Bavaria because Bavaria is the southernmost province and it's where most of the refugees actually entered in the first place. And Bavaria is one of the wealthiest provinces. It's an industrial powerhouse. Siemens, Audi, Adidas are all based there. And a lot of the vocational school training is happening down in Bavaria.
All right. So in a minute, I want to ask you some more questions about Bavaria specifically and the vocational training program there. But before we get into the details, the big question that I think you were trying to get a piece of the answer to is how on earth does a wealthy developed society cope with such a huge one-time influx? Because we're not just talking about a million Syrian refugees. We're talking, I guess, at the time, nearly 1.5 million people total came into the country, and they came in all at once within like a 6-month period of time, if I'm not mistaken. So you were trying to find out in the aftermath of this, almost 3 years later, what does that look like? And give us your sort of top line assessment. I mean, social tensions, economic costs, political fallout. How is this project going for Germany and for the newcomers?
Well, it's a huge undertaking, and I was extremely impressed at how both the Germans who are welcoming this population and the refugees themselves, at what an effort they've all put into making this a success. The Germans have approached it in a very systematic way. There's a partnership between the federal government and the state governments and the local level and civil society as well, volunteers. And then the refugees themselves are also very well connected through existing communities inside of Germany. In Berlin, there's a big Arab and Turkish community. And through Facebook, through networks, they've created a number of nonprofits themselves to help each other out and to navigate the German process. German media outlets have a ton of instructional videos about how to navigate anything from going to find a doctor for your children to how to rent an apartment, what it means to rent an apartment in Germany, how to go grocery shopping. There's integration classes where they're teaching people the language. So there have been a lot of initiatives. It's not at all an ad hoc process. It's very systematic, and it's a lot of effort by a lot of different groups of people.
So I guess the one of the central aspects of what you document is an incredibly well coordinated effort. So as we'll here in this conversation, there are lots of bumps along the road and various areas of tension. But what the Germans seem to have done really well is coordinate across all the different levels of government, state, local, national, and really bring NGOs, civil society into the picture, and have used this to problem solve pretty creatively when things have come up. So the other thing that's interesting to me about the German approach, is, as you write about it, is that they welcomed all these newcomers partly on moral grounds. It's the right thing to do. It's the genuine liberal way, but also there was a naked appeal to self-interest that in fact, according to Chancellor Angela Merkel, that this would be good for Germany's economy. So is that panning out? I mean, is this actually helping Germany's industrial base? Is it giving them an influx of young people and workers that's going to inject new vitality into their economic life?
Well, at this point, it's still too early to tell. It hasn't been very long, but there is a hope that the refugees that have come in will fill the labor shortage that there is in Germany. As across Europe, there's a falling birth rate in Germany. There are fewer people entering the vocational school programs going into these industrial sectors than there have been in the past. So they're really putting a lot of hope on the refugee community to help fill that. But it will take time. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, let's pause for a minute to listen to one of the audio clips you collected. This is from, am I saying this right, the France Ouverture Professional School. We're going to listen to a clip from the headmaster there. So let's roll that.
They desperately need people, personnel, but most of those asylum seekers or the refugees are not really ready. I mean, language is still a problem, and also they do not have the skills, but there would be an option if they could improve their language skills. You can find jobs without being a skilled or qualified worker, but then it's not very well paid. So it's definitely better if you get some kind of a qualification. We have the first refugees in the dual system, but we don't know how successfully they can complete it and if they then are accepted.
Aber wir hätten ein größeres Problem, wenn wir dieses nicht tun würden, weil sonst ein Reservoir, wie nennt man es?
But I think it's a good investment because we would have more problems if we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, so we think it's better doing that than doing nothing and then having many people living here without integration and no job opportunities at all.
Yeah.
So of course we think it's worth it in the end.
So Lily, we just heard the headmaster of the school talking about Germany's labor shortage. What do you make of this kind of sort of checkered assessment that on the one hand they need new workers, and on the other hand that the new refugees really aren't yet up to the level needed by hiring employers?
Well, as the woman that you hear in the clip is an English teacher at this vocational school. She's translating for the headmaster, Uwe Tuchku. And as he said, they believe that it's a really good investment what they're doing now, even if it will take years to see the benefits that this population will bring to the economy of Germany. What I heard from both Germans and refugees is that they need to spend these 2-3 years in school in order to get their language up to snuff. What I heard from employers is that their language is nowhere near at the level that they need it to be right now. Refugee unemployment now hovers at around 40%. So it's still, the numbers are still not reflecting what they want them to reflect. But they do have these teenagers and people up to in their late 20s. They're teaching them German, basic German. They're also teaching them the technical languages. They have them working on the latest BMW models. They're teaching them culinary skills. They're teaching them, the things that they need to put them into these factories. So I do think that as long as the programs continue as they're going now, and as long as these refugees actually stay in Germany, they'll be able to be a boon to the economy.
It's a big gamble, right? And one of the differences between Germany and the United States, there's lots of differences, of course. But one of the biggest differences is that Germany has a low birth rate, and so there's a sort of universal agreement that it's necessary to find ways to increase the population, and that creates at least some shared basis for bringing in migrants, even among parties that might otherwise not agree. The flip side, of course, is the tensions that are created when you have this new potential labor force coming in, and then it becomes clear that they're not yet ready for seamless integration into Germany's workforce. And I'm wondering, so here we're talking about potential factory workers in car plants, but I'm wondering if you learn anything about other like white collar professions. I remember lots of Syrian doctors I met in Syria and in Lebanon who were on their way to Germany, and they were optimistic that they would be able to somehow find a way to continue their training or further their training and then practice medicine. Are people with professional backgrounds like that able to join their sectors, or are they ending up in these kinds of vocational jobs as well?
Yeah, so this was a criticism that I heard from a number of very well-educated Syrians, and Syrians entering Germany are more well-educated than other refugee groups. One thing that we can bring in a clip from Asem, who is a 28-year-old who just got his master's degree in urban planning from a university in Berlin. He's very critical of the fact that the Germans are not accepting previous qualifications. The German system is very specific about which degrees and which qualifications you need to have in order to enter certain professions. And for many Syrians whose homes were destroyed in the war and who had to flee quickly and weren't able to, collect all of their school records, they're not able to prove these things. So I spoke to a number of people who had professions back home that they're not able to do now that they're in Germany because they can't prove it, and everyone's critical of the German bureaucracy. There's no way around it. It's not, you're not able to just pay someone to make your way in. So we can listen to that clip from Asem.
It is always a one-way conversation. It's not really a conversation. You just tell them what to do and what to be. You have to speak German, you have to go to this school, you have to do this and this and this and this to be able to succeed here. But I have never seen a person who is using his abilities that he already has. A lot of people don't want to lose what they already have. Like, people already have a personality. You don't need to wash it to become fitting for the society here.
Well, Lily, that's a pretty damning criticism of Germany, and I guess it speaks to the really persistent social tensions that are, I guess, inevitable when you have such a major change virtually overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've heard from a lot of people, including some of the Turkish residents of Germany that have been there for years, is that Germany is trying to learn from past mistakes. They had a huge influx of guest workers from Turkey in the 1960s, and they didn't give them any of the language skills or technical skills. They kind of assumed they would come and then go back home, but they've actually stayed. Turks are now the largest foreign population living in Germany today. So they're, there's both sides to the story. They're trying to fix past mistakes. They're trying to make an effort here, but at the same time, Syrians coming in with previous experience are not able to use it, no matter how hard they try. And that's frustrating. And I'm sure for many Syrians, that makes them wonder whether they want to continue their lives in Germany, whether it's worth it.
We'll talk more about these social tensions and the problems of assimilation after the break. Order from Ashes, New Foundations for Security in the Middle East is a multi-year TCF project supported by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. TCF experts are studying new ways to manage conflict and promote stability. You can order the book and read the reports on our website. Go to tcf.org and look for the Arab Regional Security page. This is Thanassis Cambanis on the TCF World Podcast, episode 20. I'm joined by Lily Hindy at UCLA and a former colleague here at the Centuries Foundation. Lily, thanks for coming on the podcast and welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
So we were talking about, we had just listened to this clip from Asim, and we were talking about the problems of how to conceive this. Whether you try, as Germany did in the past, to sort of build a wall around refugee communities, or whether you try, as they're doing now, to almost very heavy-handedly socially engineer an extreme assimilation project. And these are both slightly different variations of the American model of immigration, at least back when we welcomed immigrants not so long ago. Where does this sit on the spectrum? Where does Germany's effort sit on the spectrum of assimilation, or the melting pot, or the mosaic approach, or whether it's the ghettoizing of the past? Like where would you say they fit their approach today?
Well, so since you brought up ghettoizing, they have made a big effort. So across the board, the federal approach is to place refugees throughout the entire country. So there's a calculation that they have, of course, based on the tax revenue in each province and on the population. And they're trying to disperse them throughout based on these calculations. Now, there have been problems because East Germany, where there have been protests throughout this week, you may have seen, they've gotten some international attention, anti-immigrant protests, because there was a German...
This is the end of August we're talking about these protests.
Yeah. There was a German who was stabbed, and an Iraqi and a Syrian have been arrested. So there's a lot of anti-migrant sentiment. One of the owners of a brand new halal market that I spoke to in Kaufbeuren, when he arrived in Germany, he was placed in Leipzig, which is in East Germany, and he said the racism was terrible. He didn't feel welcome at all, he and his family, so they applied to be relocated to Kaufbeuren, which is in Bavaria. It's one of the towns that I visited. So there has been an attempt by the federal government to avoid that, and to really make, like I said in the beginning, it's a really systematic effort to avoid ghettoization and to assimilate the community. But there is certainly local opposition.
And we've seen lots of reports that try to link the rise of, or an increase in popularity in the far right, to this influx of immigrants. Let's listen to this clip from Wafa Farouk and her kids talking about the racism they've encountered during their housing search.
First, it was hard. A new environment, new language, communicating with doctors, with places. I mean, there was a real difficulty with these things. Most places we went to, they didn't speak English, and we spoke a little bit. But now that I'm taking the German course, things have improved a little bit. It's easier. But the problem here is the apartments. Some people don't want to give apartments to refugees. They're afraid. There are people now who are afraid of refugees. No one can blame them. One person can give a bad impression about them all. The youngest one, 3 years old, next year she'll go to school. The older one is in kindergarten. In the beginning, she would cry a lot. She didn't understand anything. Everyone was speaking in German. It was really hard for her. After a month or 2 months, she started to understand them. Then she started to love school.
So, Lily, what did you see during your travels through Germany? Is this kind of treatment or mistreatment of new immigrants widespread?
Yeah, so I won't make a generalization, but based on the interviews that I did, the people that I spoke with, there is certainly discrimination against refugees in renting apartments. As Wafat said, people generalize based on something they've heard about, something that one Syrian did. And at the same time, there's a family that I met, which is Klaus and Susan Silverberger, who invited a refugee family to come into their home and share their home with them. They rented out rooms to them, and they all have kind of become a happy family. Actually, I spoke with Sausan, the woman. They're from Kobane. They're a Kurdish family from Kobane in Syria, and they've actually moved out. But while they were there, they didn't feel any discrimination from the local population. That's what they said. But then another family that I spoke with that I think we'll hear a clip from them later on, Abdul Rahman and Noura Al-Zaghair, they are renting from a Turkish landlord in Kaufbeuren. And they also said they had been living in temporary refugee housing like Wafat and her children, and they had a really hard time finding an apartment until they met a Turkish landlord who said, you look like a good Muslim family. We have a room to rent, and they rented it to them. As well, the halal market owners, they're renting from a Turkish landlord as well. So,
I mean, it's interesting. It seems like there's a fair amount of friction in this experiment, even if you look as you did very granularly. And I guess this is not that different than patterns of migration elsewhere, where newcomers end up moving into marginal areas or transitional areas, or areas with older line immigrant communities that end up in many cases being more welcoming than other more established communities. And this sort of tension, one of the tensions that you have really spotlighted in your research here is between the very dutiful and, let's say, well orchestrated government response, and then the very messy reality when you get down into the details, where there might be like a good government office in place to help people find housing, but when they actually go and knock on landlords' doors, the landlords won't rent to them. And I guess this is interesting to me, both as a way of thinking about just how Germany is approaching this really fascinating and well-intentioned experiment, but also in thinking about what the United States can learn as we try, at least from my perspective, we try to articulate once again the rationale for why it's good for us to be a melting pot, mosaic society that welcomes foreigners and immigrants and newcomers, even when it's difficult. So I think let's listen to the clip you mentioned, Abdul Rahman and Noura Al-Zaghair talking about their view of their identity, because I think they bring up some of these powerful questions about identity and belonging and blending into the community that underlie a lot of the debates about immigration.
I see myself in Deutschland, but I really want to be with my family. I want my children grow up with my family. I want to stay with my family.
Yeah.
Because now me and my sisters, we are, for example, I am in Deutschland, my other sister in Turkey, my other sister, she is in Sudan. Yeah, we should stay together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can tell you have a different opinion.
Not totally. And the first of the revolution, Noura said for the revolution no. She said, and his family also, they said, okay, Bashar al-Assad is a bad president, his government is a bad
he's
regime,
He's
but
he's
we
bad,
can't, but we can't resist it. We can't load this revolution. Please let we live. Okay. I live for this revolution, and I thought it's a best thing happened to me in this life. Okay, I can't live with this regime anymore. I can't smile in the intelligence faces anymore. I can't see a policeman or a military army man from in Syria. And I remember my friends who did five or 400,000 people who did in this war, and I smile. Hello, welcome to Syria. I can't that. I can't. If this regime goes left, I can also in the Syria living. About Deutschland, I find Deutschland a good country to live in. Okay, when we got our chances in the normal situation without pressure from the politica, now every politica said the Syrians are our problem. We are not a problem. If it's about Islam, there is more than 4 or 5 millions Muslim Turkish in Deutschland. They are not a problem. There's people from Kosovo, people from Morocco, people from everywhere. They are not a problem. So we are just 1 million Syrian Muslim people here. We will not be a problem. If they help us, we will help to build this civilization. So I want to be a part in this civilization if I can. If I got my chance, I try to educate myself, to educate my wife, to educate my children. This civilization with our culture, with our traditional. Okay, not separated. Okay. If I got my chances in the normal way and my good chances, I will live happy in Deutschland. I will let the choice for my son to choose what you want to make. He born here in Deutschland, but he's Syrian, so he will make his choice.
Yeah, so Noura and Abdulrahman live in Kaufbeuren, which is this town in Bavaria that I mentioned. Kaufbeuren, the town, the churches, the local nonprofit refugee assistance group has done a ton to assimilate the refugees there. I was extremely impressed by the efforts in this small town. But they still face challenges, and it was interesting to hear one of the volunteers in this group, Arbeitskreis Kaufbeuren, speak about Abdulrahman. He said Abdulrahman is kind of a leader among the refugee community. He set up this Facebook group called Zusammen, which is helping connect refugees to connect those who speak better German or better English with those who are newer, who don't really know what's going on, who need help finding an apartment or finding a doctor or whatever it is. Abdulrahman also helped set up that halal market to get the products that the community wanted. And so Jürgen Conrad, who is this volunteer that we spoke with, said that the community in Kaufbeuren was a little bit suspicious of Abdulrahman because they could tell that he was a leader. He's also a pious Muslim, and he doesn't shake hands with women the way that many pious Muslims do. And some of his friends have started after they got to Kaufbeuren to not shake hands with women, for example. there's been a move to build a new mosque in Kaufbeuren, and there's been a lot of resistance to that. So Noura and Abdulrahman are happy to be in Kaufbeuren. They have this great apartment, better than the other apartments that I saw refugees living in. But they also feel that people are judging them. Noura said, her German.
Well, and this is exactly the kind of sort of ambiguous assimilation that is at the heart of a lot of the tensions over immigrants. On the one hand, you want to see resourceful initiative takers who help lead communities to integrate, and on the other hand, one can certainly see how a secular liberal German would be, would look askance or find problematic to have someone whose practice of religion might seem fundamentalist or at odds with a liberal secular society, and I think that's a really interesting tension at the heart of this experience that you're describing. So, lest our listeners think that it's all dreary and boring doing this kind of policy research, let's hear one last clip. This is from Yazan, Tariq, and Oda, a group of young Syrians that you met in Berlin.
I love Syria, I love my homeland, I love my people, but now the people are there, I'm not there, so why I have to love walls? And there's no memories, the memories with the people. So I belong to people, more to the land,
Yeah.
So home, what does it mean home without people? For example, if I go home, I don't find my mother, my sisters. What's home? Here in Germany, work or education, it's main things here. Either you work or you study. There is no third option. You can work here, not for money benefits. There is social work, there is volunteers work, and people really appreciate that. Okay. Really 100% appreciate that. Why you don't want to help others? Why you don't want to integrate with them? And there are also problems and also in their cases. Yeah. If you don't want to work, just learn how they do that. Yeah. So that's why you get the education. If you want to do something, do it by yourself. Don't ask people. Language is the key for everything.
Here in Germany, they work on time. Call them the machines. So at the beginning, it was so hard, because they are so wake up at morning at 6, brush my teeth, then I go to work from 8 to 9. Then after that, I back to home with the car from the same way, and then I sleep again, and then I watch the same TV show for 1 year. Here in Germany, they change their mind so quickly. They think about more mentality things than emotion things. They have the brains, it's more powerful than emotion. We are Arabic, we have emotion.
I'm so emotional people.
Exactly, so I don't find the base ground because
common ground.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a nice change of tone, Lily. What should we take away from these people, these last people we heard from?
Yeah, so this was a group of young 20-somethings from Damascus. Wolf is a dancer, and he is one of the very, very few who have been accepted into university programs in Germany. He's in the University of the Arts in Berlin, and these are his 3 friends from Damascus. They know each other from before, mostly from living in Damascus together. And here they were telling me about how different Germans are from Arabs, using some stereotyping, but certainly the way that Tariq describes the very robotic way of life that Germans lead, and how it's been difficult for them to get used to that. But they're having a great time. Wolf has access to the studio at the University of the Arts, and Tariq is a rapper, and Yazan makes beats, and Odabashi is an illustrator. So they've all taken advantage of the opportunities that are available to them through civil society and through Wolf's connection at the university to make their art, and they feel really motivated by the artistic and creative scene in Berlin.
Well, Lily, thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks especially for this fantastic research, which I think it's a great read, and it's kind of heartening for those of us who feel like these kinds of projects are possible, and that social tensions resulting from immigration need not be fatal to the social fabric of a host country. Listeners who want to read the report can go to the TCF website and look for the report. It's called Germany's Syrian Refugee Integration Experiment. The read is a lot livelier than that title. I encourage you to take a look at it at the Century Foundation's website. Lily, thanks again for taking the time to come on our podcast.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And that's it for the episode 20 of the TCF World podcast. We look forward to talking to you next time. TCF World has been brought to you by the Century Foundation, a progressive public policy think tank that seeks to foster opportunity, reduce inequality, and promote security at home and abroad. For more information about the work that TCF does, please visit tcf.org or follow us on Twitter and Facebook.